lesson 11.2, in a way, continues kind of like 11.1, in that we're still talking about statistics type stuff, and there's still not much actual math being done in terms of working with numbers. Okay? We will get to the numbers in this chapter. Don't you worry. Okay? There will be numbers. Now, in the meantime, there's a lot of vocabulary. We're looking at statistical studies and sampling methods, so various ways to ask survey questions, create samples, and those type of things. Now, an example to get our brains flowing, to get the discussion juices going here. Jacinta and Felix were each asked to design a study to answer the question, what proportion of students at this school listen to music while studying? And then you have two images here. The one on the left shows Jacinta's study, and the one on the right shows information about Felix's study. Okay. So kind of look at that, and then look at A. What group did Jacinta select from to conduct her study? And then what group did Felix select from? Thoughts here? Stetson?
Jacinta, friends in her gym class.
Okay.
Felix, students listening to music in the library.
Okay. So when we talk about what group did they select from, Jacinta's is friends in gym class. And Felix was, I'm going to put it as students in the library. Okay, so notice there's a difference in how they selected their people they asked their question to. How did Jacinta choose which members of her group to question versus how did Felix choose which members from his group to observe? And I realized this morning that this kind of overlaps question 1, doesn't it? It didn't seem like that last night in my head when I typed this up. Just go with it, okay? So, what do you notice about Jacinta? How did she choose her members? Okay, she picked friends, right? So there, you know, the key right there is she picked friends. Whereas, what did Felix do? Okay. He picked random students.
Listening.
Okay.
Listening.
Well, and it's more, I guess, along the lines of he observed. Because I don't know that he really asked the questions. I think he just did more of he observed them. But again, that makes it, if you're observing, okay, how many in the library are listening to music, that is, you know, that's a random group of students. That's not just picking friends. Okay? So, kind of mentioned it, but in a different way, the fact that Jacinta questioned friends, whereas Felix, the way it's listed, students listening to music in the library, not even that he might have questioned them, but he might have also just observed. Okay. And I'll put questions since we don't know here, but actually I'm going to say question / observed students in the library. Now, the real question out of all of this. Who designed a better study and why? What are your thoughts on it?
Jacinta, because the students that she had questioned were already listening to music prior to her questioning them.
I would like to disagree. Felix had a much better study than Jacinta.
You have to explain.
Okay.
You can't just tell me a name and you have to be
All right.
support yourself.
First of all, he had a total amount of students. He had a percent to that student, to those students as well. He counted them off, and they weren't friends; they were random. Jacinta could have asked her friends, maybe change the focus there, persuade them, cheated them out.
What? Exactly. Okay, but if you're in the library, nine times out of 10, you're going to study.
Yeah.
So if you're observing students that are already in the library listening to music, then the
Now,
odds are higher than
Hold on here, though. And I think one thing I want to point out, the tally marks are what? People actually listening to music. How many people did he actually observe?
100.
100. So did he observe only this, or question, I don't know if it's observe or question at this point, but did he observe or question only the students listening to music?
No. He did all of them.
And I think that is one thing we have to take into account here. Chloe?
So all the students in Felix's study, they were already in they were like the target audience. Like they were in the correct environment. Like they were already studying. It wasn't just random people walking about. It was actually people who kind of related to the thing, because it'd be pointless if you went and asked people who don't study, because then you don't even get an answer there. So you found a group of people in a place that they were already studying. So it's
And there's a pros and cons both ways with that. But yeah, I see it.
I think it's Felix.
And why?
Well, basically, just ask your friends in gym class. I don't think anybody's ever studied in gym.
You got a point.
But Felix just observed random people, 100 people actually,
so the more people.
in a place where studying happens to take place often.
Okay. So, things to point out here.
Smart.
Okay. So I think couple of valid things to consider. First of all, the number of students. Jacinta questioned 7, and whether Felix questioned or observed, it was still a total of 100, yes? What's going to be the more accurate sample there is the larger a sample is, the bigger or the more accurate your response is going to be there. Okay? And then we also have the issue of Jacinta was friends in gym class. Did she question her entire gym class?
No, just around.
No. Just friends in gym class. Whereas, what does it indicate that Felix did?
That's good.
Anyone in the library, right? And in the library, I don't know what the situation is. Was it necessarily students all from one class? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. I don't know. And here's what I kind of want to say here. I don't feel like they necessarily have to be in a study mode right now to ask this question. Okay. Because in a survey like this, you could have, oh, I don't study as a response. Well, I don't study, so I can't really answer whether I listen to music or not. But I think it's more the size of the sample and who they asked. Is it just specific people or lots of people in general? I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think those are the key points that I have written down. So, all of that to say, who am I agreeing with? I'm agreeing with Felix here. Okay. Various reasons. Autumn's covering her mouth. That's not good. I know Autumn too well for that one. Yeah, see? Gave herself away there. Okay. First of all, Felix asked, whether it was asked or observed, students other than just friends. Okay. And, bless you, asked 100 total students. Those are the two big keys that I see to this problem. Okay, the size of the sample and the fact that the sample is random versus friends. Okay, and there's a lot, I mean, you guys made a lot of valid points. Okay, so there's a lot of other different things we can talk about there, but looking at the pieces. Okay, this is a big thing of what we're going with, okay? What makes a study good? What makes it bad? What makes a sample good? What makes it bad? What makes a question good? What makes it bad? These are the types of things we're looking at here. So, before we turn the page, at the bottom of this page, there is some information about types of study. Okay? There are 3 different types of study we can talk about here. One is a sample survey. Ask every member of a sample the same set of questions and records the answers. For instance, Jacinta could have done a sample survey. Her sample just being those 7 friends in gym class, right? But she asked everybody the questions, recorded the answers. So surveying a sample. The example up here, a newspaper polls randomly selected residents in a town about which mayoral candidate they prefer. Okay, so taking a sample and surveying. The second option, experiment. Experiment involves applying a treatment to some group of groups and measuring the effects of the treatment. Example is the best way to explain this. A doctor conducts a clinical trial of a new blood pressure medicine by prescribing it to half the patients in the study and measuring the effect it has on their blood pressure. So in the experiment, you're changing something and seeing what happens. Okay? You're changing some variable, so to speak. So trying to change something. And then observational study, which I think in a way this is what Felix could have done. I don't know that because it didn't really ever say that, but an observational study measures or observes members of a sample in such a way that they are not affected by the study. Could he have just sat at the door and watched as people studied and, you know, who's listening to music, who's not? Very possibly. So just by observing, gain the information by observing. The example here, a grocery store wonders how many customers bring reusable grocery bags to the store. They have an employee stand at the checkout and count the number of people using reusable bags. Okay, so just, oh, that person is, that person's not, that person is, that, you know, just being able to take the information that way. So we're going to answer some questions about what type of study could you use to answer the following questions. See how many arguments we can get into on this side, right? Okay. What type of study could you use to answer the following questions? So you're going to have to flip back and forth. You have those 3 options on the front. Does urban pollution have an effect on rates of asthma? What do you think, Stetson?
Experiment.
I concur.
Why?
Well, because the only way to find out if urban pollution has an effect on rates of asthma is if you take people that have it or don't have it and put them in an urban setting and see if it affects them.
Katie?
I just agree. I think it's a sample because you're just asking. It's like a pool type of question. Does it have an effect?
I didn't do it
But
too, but I agree with Katie.
would the people know that the urban pollution is the problem?
I don't know. That's what they answer is.
That's why that's not
And
a
also-
reliable experiment.
I want to say.
And an experiment is applying treatment to them. So what treatment are you going to apply to them?
Urban pollution. Go to the herbs.
I mean, you would have people and put them in.
I'm gonna clean up some pollution.
You're going to gather the pollution?
I will say by morning class we had to have a discussion about what urban means, so
Oh.
we did have to have that discussion.
Oh.
Maybe I should have it here, but urban versus we live in a rural community.
Yeah.
Urban would be more like maybe Indianapolis or something.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, what happens And I say I disagree with both answers.
There's no way it's observational.
Well, I think the key, okay, so here's the deal.
Chaos.
Here's what I think you have to look at. It says, does urban pollution have an effect on rates of asthma? So rates of asthma, as in what percentage of the population have asthma, is the way I take that to be.
How do you find the
Yeah, how do you find out?
Well, and
You have
that's
to
where,
ask them.
okay, so at that point, you're observing data. To me, I go with you're not collecting the data's already there.
But how did it get there?
But,
The records. It isn't to the doctors.
okay, so I have down on this one observational study. And it's, because here's the deal, we're not questioning anybody, oh, is that urban pollution affecting your asthma? That would be, to me, that's a sample survey. And I don't know, if you have asthma, do you know if the urban pollution is affecting your asthma? Probably only if you've moved out of the city and tried living away from the city. In terms of experiment, there's not anything we're changing. That would, I would say not an experiment because there's not anything we're changing. So I'm going with observational study because we can observe the rates of asthma and, okay, what are the rates of asthma in a town like Chicago versus what are the rates of asthma here at Tri-Central? Have I justified my reasoning here?
I've been convinced.
I think that
Yeah, that was.
Okay.
That was pretty good.
I'm looking to find a way back.
Now, do I need to write the explanations down?
We already went over it, we'll remember.
I haven't been writing the explanations down today, so I'm going to say feel free to write an explanation down for yourself if you want to, right? Okay. Example B. How many students in a school would like the cafeteria to serve breakfast?
Sample.
Sure.
Because I can go and survey each class and say, do you want the cafeteria to serve breakfast? Do you want the cafeteria to serve breakfast? Do you want the cafeteria to serve breakfast, right? And that's, if you're trying to answer that question, that's the easiest way. So this is a sample survey. And C, the group of plants is not growing well compared to the rest. What should you change to improve their growth?
experiment.
Yeah, experiment.
And why is this experiment?
Because you can change it
Because we're talking about changing something to help the plants grow better.
with light treatment.
Okay, yeah, apply a treatment. Okay. A was rough, B and C were a little bit better. Okay, let's try this again. What type of study is described? These are all about the gym. A gym asks its customers if they would prefer the gym to open earlier in the morning.
Sample.
Sample.
They're asking, right? They're getting an opinion. They're surveying a group. So this is a sample survey. A gym tries out a new weightlifting method to see if it will build muscle for their customers faster than their current method.
Experiment.
It's not observation.
And here's the deal.
I don't know about that.
You're changing it by doing a new method.
Right, you're changing something out. They're trying a new weightlifting method to see if it'll build muscles, build muscles, excuse me. So we are talking experiment because there's a change. And
Observational.
a gym counts the customers who come before 8 a.m.
Observational.
because that's standing in just 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, right? So that is an observational study. Okay? Questions on those? Well, let's talk a little bit about bias then. Okay. Are you familiar with the word bias? Okay. Probably a word you've heard before. A study has bias if it systematically produces results that misrepresent a population. Okay, so there are a lot of different ways we can talk about bias, whether it be how the question's asked, who the question is asked to, when the question is asked, just how the question is written. Lots of different things that can cause bias, can cause the answers to be not very
Diverse.
accurate. Okay, so with that, we're going to look at a couple examples here and talk about whether or not there is bias in it and how that might affect it. Okay? So, in the following situation, are the differences between groups potentially due to bias? So, A. A psychologist is conducting surveys to study the happiness levels of people who live in a neighborhood. She asked the same question to the two samples below, chosen from the population of the neighborhood. So in the first one, she surveyed 100 people on a sunny Saturday afternoon, and her result was 65% of the people were happy. And then the second sample was she surveyed 100 people, 100 more people, this time Monday morning, and the result was that 35% of the people were happy. Do you think the differences in those responses is due to a bias?
Yes.
Autumn?
Very much.
Yes, because Mondays are rough for anybody and everybody. But if it's like sunny and a Saturday, then that's a double win.
Yeah, sure. You know, when's the last time you seen someone super happy on a Monday morning walking into school? I not seen no one skipping into school. I'll pay to see that.
Okay.
Nobody even
Next
skips
Monday.
to the school. Like
Have you seen John Bales?
nobody skips to
John
school
Bales
on a
will.
Friday.
John
Okay.
Bales will do dumb stuff, okay?
Now, okay, a couple of things here. So, I feel like this is kind of an obvious example here, but yes, asking someone if we're going with the concept that most people are not at school or work on a Sunday or Saturday afternoon. Not saying that there aren't people at work, because obviously there are, but the result is people are going to be more likely to be happy. Whereas Monday morning, going back to work, going back to school, whatever the case is, there is likely to be bias. So, yes, in this case, bias did potentially affect the results. And I may say, how do I want to say this? Time/day, because both of those are an issue. The time/day that the surveys
So whether
were done, true, could create bias. Excuse me. Okay. B. A school wants to know the average height of its students. The school randomly chooses some students and measures their height. Some students are under 5 feet tall, and some are over 6 feet 5 inches tall. Bias?
Nope. They randomly chose the student.
Okay, they randomly chose the students. Is it logical that you would have some under 5 feet and some over 6 feet 5 inches tall? That's just part of height, right? Not everyone's the same height. And so, and even in a school setting, right? There's some of us that are shorter, some that are taller. And so there is not a bias here. It's just natural differences in height, right? Yeah, tickle my throat. Okay. One last one in this section. A soft drink company calls 500 people at random and asks, is our product or our rival's product the best soft drink on the market? Why is this question a potential source of bias? Jonathan?
Okay. When you get called by a company at random, are you going to be happy about it? Like you've just been interrupted, whatever you're doing for their random shenanigans. All right, this is not in your favor, so most likely you're gonna say no, screw off, I'm busy, and then hang up the phone.
I was going to say you would agree.
That doesn't answer this question, though.
So I feel like the potential source of bias is that nobody wants to answer a survey.
Okay, then you just don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that does not answer this question. This question is, why is this question a potential source of bias?
Because if one soft drink company is asking which is better, more people are going to say, oh, it's yours, because they're the one asking it.
Right? How is this worded, in other words? Do you like our soft drink, or do you like our rival company's soft drink?
It makes the other one sound bad.
Right? Using the word rival, in a way, I think rival has a
Like an enemy.
negative connotation in a way, right?
An enemy.
A rival is a bad thing. Okay. So the idea here is the way a question is asked. Can that have bias in it? Yeah, because it can create bias in how you respond to the question. And so I have written down in my notes, bias, the way the question is asked, may lead a respondent to give the answer the company wants. Like they're trying to get you to say, yeah, hey, yeah, yours is the best. That's what they're wanting us to say, isn't it? So I'm going to say bias. The way the question is worded may lead respondents to give the answer the company wants to hear. Okay, so I put bias, the way the question is worded, may lead the respondents to give the answer the company wants to hear. And it may not. Okay? We're going to get the Jonathan of the group that answers. And so then he says, no, I don't like yours. I like the other one because
Yes.
he's just mad at the person that interrupted whatever he was doing.
Absolutely.
What if I was asking about Dr. Pepper? Like, say, like, Mr. Pibb called me and was like, do you like Dr. Pepper or Mr. Pibb's better?
Dr. Pepper, 100%.
Obviously, I'd say Dr. Pepper because it's the best drink ever. No matter who calls, my answer would be Dr. Pepper. But if it was like Coke or Pepsi, I don't really care.
You're like, whatever. Okay, so we will pick up here on Monday.
Like I was in psychology
We have
class.
to look at some samples, and then we're going to talk about some studies, and then we should have some work time. As I mentioned, I do not have the homework available. I will have it available Monday. If you have not completed 11-1, get that done because that's due today and the 9 weekends today.